Good evening and welcome to the Square. The year 2018 ended with multiple festivities across the country, especially in Kigali, and we saw a move where local authorities worked in tandem, in synergy with the creative industry, and this is to do with local promoters and the public, to facilitate the public for these festivities in the country. What we are going to discuss tonight with the implementers of the creative industry is how to strengthen the creative industry in Rwanda. On the Square before, we've had this similar discussion with policymakers and authorities, but tonight we thought it fit to start the year actually to talking to players, creatives, so to speak, in this particular sector. I'm joined here by Hope Azeda. Hope, thank you for respecting our invitation to the Square this evening. Hope is the director of Mashirika Performing Arts and Media Company. Thank you for
Thanks for
being
having
here tonight.
me. Thank you for having me.
As many of you know, in Kigali, I'm sure many of you know Hope. We're also joined by Arthur Nkusi. Arthur Nkusi is a creative director of Arthur Nation. He's an actor, he's a comedian, amongst many other things. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Dan Mpisi. I'm the host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by my lovely resident panelist, Ephraim. Welcome to The Square.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Charles Harbour, welcome to The Square.
Happy New Year, Diana. Happy New Year, Arthur, Hope, Ephraim. Happy New Year, guys, and to our audience.
Yes. Happy New Year. As always, we are joined by Berna Namata, but she couldn't be with us tonight. But I'm sure wherever she is, she's following closely on the show. So before we begin the discussion on how we can strengthen and boost the creative sector, a very important conversation, I think, we thought it's fitting to have at the beginning of the year, and a review of 2018 in this particular regard. I'd like us to just have a quick recap of the week so far. It's been an eventful week. I mean, we started the week this year, so to speak. And Charles, I'll start with you if you have some highlights you'd like to share with us.
Two particular ones. One, I want to give credit where it's due. The Rwanda National Police and the way they handled the festive season. Incident-free, at least from the formal reports that they said nothing major. But driving around the night and as the hours matured, I was particularly impressed in the way the police had deployed and the way they were managing their affairs. Gone are the days when you'd have roadblocks and intimidating people on the streets. I tried to get VW Move. I could not. Because it was extremely busy. You had to queue up for a Yego cab. It also means that a lot of people are beginning to be more responsible. But I really want to commend the National Police for that. Away from that, giving credit where it's due, police, please keep it up. I want to talk about a UN report that has come out pinning Burundi on working with the forces of FDLR and RNC. And I think that is something to be extremely concerned about.
Interesting. Ephraim?
I think for me, my news of the week was or is the election in our neighboring DRC. I think for me, all that's considered everything. For me, the most important, or at least the highlight for me, has been the media, or at least the international media. And its role in trying to a certain degree incite violence, or at least create some instability. BBC, I think even CNN, went ahead to announce fake results. Some would argue that they're real, some would argue that they're not, but for the most part, the government had not made an official claim on some of these results, and you could see that even these announcements were a bit controversial on who won, in which parts as well. So you realize that, I think for me, that was also an interesting highlight or takeaway from the week, and we'll see how it plays out. A fortunate thing was other international media houses came out to correct them on that and say, actually, we have not yet heard anything back in relation to this. So I think we hope to see how it turns out.
And we hope for the best.
Definitely, because I mean, stability in the region it benefits everyone.
It benefits everyone.
Yeah, and yeah, hopefully it will be a productive 2019 in the region. We talked about this last time on the Square, about East African Community and its regional partners as well. And he just alluded to Burundi and the UN report. And I think whatever happens in DRC in any way would affect us. So we hope for the best.
Absolutely. So we are here tonight to discuss the creative industries in Rwanda and how to strengthen them. By this, just very quickly, what do we mean by creative industries? These are goods and services that fall under a wide scope, and this includes everything from film, theater, music, radio and television, festivals, performing and visual arts, newspapers, magazines, and so forth. And the two guests have been involved, I think, for a decade plus in this particular field.
Does that mean the square, from your definition, does that mean the square falls in the creative
we are industry? All of us actually seated here as part of the creative industry in this country. And so my question, I alluded to the fact that I think it's the first time we're seeing local authorities work in synergy with the creative industry, the services and goods I just mentioned, to boost the festive season. As you remember, we had the local Rwanda National Police, City of Kigali here with us, explaining to us how they're facilitating this particular industry for the public's sake, for consumers. And I think for me personally, in 2018, December, just seeing that synergy was the first time seeing it, at least at that level. And so my question to you as creatives is, looking back at 2018, what is your take on how the creative industry has played out based on your experience in this particular sector? And what are your expectations for the next year? But I just want to hear from you, just in this year that we have just concluded, what is your take on the creative industry in Rwanda, or its growth or progress? Or I hope it's not static, but as players in this industry, Hope, I'll start with you.
Well, the synergies really, for me, brought a ray of hope on board, because for a long time we've been struggling to make our point come home. Like, this is a profession. Our country needs this. You know, you always pushed and pitched ideas, but it was just not working. But seeing policymakers, authorities, everyone is now jumping on board. Creative industry is becoming a common conversation in our offices, outside on the streets, in schools, and people talking about it. And for me, that conversation is one big step in this journey that we're going to start to start walking. It's not an easy journey, but at least we've started somewhere. Because really, when I see what happened before, you'd go and say, I'm an artist, and people say, oh, are you here to dance? I'm like, are we not here to talk about mental health? What is dancing about mental health? We are using theater for development, and we use our skills to fill this gap. So you'd find you have to use so much energy and oxygen just to teach that art can contribute to society, can contribute to the economy of the country. So seeing people getting involved and coming on board and talking about this is really amazing. Yeah,
I think what I saw this year was how the government was actually pushing the private sector to get involved. That was a good move. I attended a dinner that was done by Minispoc, doing some talent. Yes. I think, they were basically getting them involved and defining what is art. Because the truth is, we might be, even now, defining creative art and industry, but the decision makers out there don't know what it is. They really have no idea. And sometimes they hear the word and they're like, we want to get involved. So they tell the people below. And these people, the only thing is in Rwanda, the word umuhanzi is a singer.
Direct translation.
It's not a direct translation. It's just that a singer became more famous than any other, for example. Yes. So now that becomes a problem. Hope goes there with an idea of, I want to use a singer, but not to sing. Just seem to release voices that create emotions. No words, nothing. Now, for someone used to nachivas or nachimi, that vibe, and say you come and I'm like, keep giving no say. So the idea of understanding creative arts is the problem now, and that is why we don't get the value of it.
Yeah, and also you mentioned the idea of the mindset. Yes, is the biggest challenge, because really these are creative industries thrive in sophisticated societies. There has to be this bridge of marrying the art education with creative industries, and also create that mindset that has a culture of thriving from thoughts to habits, which habits will become our values, and which values will shape our destiny. And that destiny is the story. This is the Rwandan story. So our creative industries right now, we need to work out and define our story as Rwanda. What is our story?
I'd just like to go back, if you could give us some concrete elements or concrete examples of how in 2018 there's some things that you stood out for you in terms of the growth of this particular industry.
For me, like, let me give my example.
Yes.
Like, my example.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, can you also talk about Ubumunu? Because
We're going to get to that when we talk about
okay, now that, let
yes.
me marry the two, Ubumunu and the creative industries. Yes. So, for me, 2018, seeing the Ministry of Culture and Sports come on board of Ubumunu as an idea, as a platform, as a global platform that is helping the creative industries move forward is a big achievement, because in 2015, just yesterday, 2015, when I took the idea of Ubumunu Arts Festival to the Ministry of Culture, they said, where is it taking place? I'm like, at the Genocide Memorial, at the amphitheater, because that's where there was the amphitheater. They said, these genocide things, I think, they bounced back the whole document to S1E43. They're like, these are genocide things. Like, it's not, that has nothing to do with the genocide, but we're going to talk, it's a platform created for the sake of humanity. So when it went to S1E43 bounced it back to the ministry, then it bounced back to us and was like, you know what, I told my team, we need to keep working. We need to keep working. One day they will understand what we are talking about and they'll come on board. And this is what they did this year. They came on board, and it's so nice just to see the logo of the Ministry of Culture and Sports on a website of Ubumunu, which is so global now, with so many followers, with a vibrant people following this whole thing going on. So for me, that is really one testimony I can give, that seeing people coming on board, seeing the Minister of Culture come for the opening, being part of this story, which has become now a global story, is for me encouraging.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think has changed from 2015? What do you think has changed in relation to why all of a sudden people seem interested in pushing some of these things forward?
What I see changed is people just the mindset. It comes back to the mindset, because people thought, this is just entertainment, but there's more to this than entertainment. There is the education side of it. And if we are going to join the race of the global trend of creative industries, we are going to start talking about this. We are going to have everyone get involved. And for me, that's what has changed. That's really, just seeing policymakers on board, that has changed enough.
I think there's also something that has changed quite a bit, Ephraim, in terms of the quality of the product that we consume. And I want to talk about this from a consumer's perspective. In about 1998 or 1999, thereabout, when we were at the university, I remember Mashirika coming to perform in Butare. And with no offense meant, please don't take this offensive. I think we just watched an ordinary play.
Yeah.
That's 20 years ago.
Yes, 20 years ago. Today, we really look forward to a Mashirika performance. It is something that is extraordinary. When Arthur and his colleagues were beginning to perform in the early days of shooters. You would wait to be reminded to laugh. But I watched the first time Arthur did a one-man show at the Serena. He performed for slightly over an hour. They had overhyped us that he would perform for an hour. The hour ended, and we were not content. We still wanted more. But back to Diana's point around people not being content, the education that's required, he climaxed his performance with choreography. I don't know whether, I hope you were there. With did some dancing on the show. And then so the guy who was seated next to me said, but did we come to watch a comedian, or we came to watch a dancer? So in my mind, if unfortunately I was drinking from a glass, if I was drinking from a bottle, I would have hit it on his head. But we still have a long way to go. But this is what I frame. The point is, the artists themselves have done a lot to do themselves a favor in terms of impressing the consumers. But on that point, I want to talk about the East African Party that was there, that's now a culture of every 1st of January. Gone are the days when the East African Party was highlighted by foreign artists.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, we've been having global stars who are Rwandan artists, and we look forward to them. I'll never forget a time when, back several years ago, I used to have a radio show, and you would struggle. The biggest hit at the time was, there's a guy who used to sing about Inyoni Yari Dunze. Yes. Today, you go into a club, and for 2-3 hours in a row, they're playing Rwandan music. Yeah. So I think they've done themselves a favor by upping their game.
And I'd like to just go back to Ephraim's question on what do you think has changed, Arthur?
I think there is another thing that have changed. Generations change, and generations go with mindset. If you look in the ministries now, the generations that are there, let's say if you throw back 2000, the thinking that was there, those people were in maybe high school or university. They had needs. Their hearts wanted something. Now, they are there. So when they see an artist approaching them, they're like, I've always wanted to see. This happened to me. I did Seka Fest last year, and I brought up an idea that I didn't know was really, really doable, of throwing 30 comedians in buses the whole day, performing. Someone told me, I said, it's noise pollution.
They run the regulatory
Yes,
agency.
so I noted it down. I'm like, so I need to talk to Rura. I said, Police Rwanda, traffic, come on, they are standing. I noted it down. So what I did now, I went to these guys.
To the authorities.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, this is the thing. So I don't know how to do it, but it would be fun. You know, imagine having comedians performing. I said, this is agenda. Yeah. No, they say, where are they going to be stopping from? I'm like, bus stops. Yes. Comedians enter from one bus stop to another. So police was like, okay, I think it's really okay. How are you standing? Like, we have some small microphones. We didn't get the microphones, we got megaphones, but we presented microphones to them. And then the surprising part was Rura. I met the director. I told him about the project. He loved it. He's like, this is an innovation in transport. I also talked to
RFTC?
No, not RFTC, the Express, the other company.
Royal Express.
Royal, yeah. And they were like, okay. I talked to another AC group. Everyone was into it. Why? If I look at the people that I talk to, no one is above 40 years. This might be a stupid fact, but I have a feeling that it had a big role of me getting that. I got all the papers, all of them, clearing.
So you think the generational aspect is crucial in
That's
the
what I was
change
going to,
of the growth of this creative industry?
I think the generation aspect is very crucial because in their mind, they want something.
All the people are boring.
And also, I think also their mindset is dynamic.
Exactly.
Because if the mindset is static, it's so hard to make it, embrace and say yes to things. So a dynamic mindset is also very helpful, but which is also exposed to which has had exposure, which goes on internet and see the mindsets of today are kind of getting informed now. You can't really give them a raw deal. They know by the time they come out to pay their money, you have to give them what is worth their money. So we have a mindset that is dynamic,
very exposed, and and they already have something, so they compare. We have a very much comparing audience. So I think that
technology
change,
is helping also.
That change really played a big role. And that's why when you see even the projects done by the government, if you really dig deep and see the project coordinators and the people running those projects, very young guys.
That's true.
It's really playing a big role.
Generational shift.
My next question is to do with, first of all, I'd like to just give out this statistic. I hope it has changed, but a 2010 UNCTAD report showed that Africa's input into the creative economy globally was at 1%. This is just 10 years ago.
Of GDP.
1%.
1%
of the total in the creative economy.
Yeah.
The contribution from Africa as a continent is at 1%.
Wow.
Yeah, very dismal figures, but this is in 2010, and I hope this has changed. But basically, a lot of people have said that Africa is a sleeping giant when it comes to creativity and the creative economy. We just lack the infrastructure, what you're also talking about, the mindset from people to facilitate this. And this particular economy actually contributes to GDPs of countries like the UK. It's really huge, Australia and developed countries, so to speak. But continentally, there's a lot more that can be done. And this is why we're talking about this in Rwanda to start with. But my next question to you is that, and I'll just read this out. In addition to economic benefits, the creative economy also generates non-monetary value that contributes to achieving a people-centered, inclusive, and sustainable development. So from this, I would like you to just share with us your personal initiatives, things that you've been doing since 1998 for You Hope, for Arthur, 2000s, the early 2000s, if you can, because I think government can only do so much.
Yeah.
Government can provide infrastructure, they can provide facilitation, they can provide policy, but at the end of the day, it's up to the players in this creative sector, in the creative industries, to actually go forward and make their mark. So I'd like to start with you, Arthur. The personal initiatives you've done, I know there are a couple, if you'd share them with us to promote this sector.
I can talk about the 1% a little bit because it's something that people don't really see. In Rwanda, agriculture generates more. Why? Because the biggest percentage is free land. Those are the raw materials of agriculture. And they feed the industry with everything needed. We are talking about equipment, we are talking about big investment, we are talking about anything that goes with agriculture in Rwanda. There is even a project in the development banks that sponsors agriculture projects, specifically agriculture projects. So there will definitely be an imbalance with the input and the income that generated with different sectors. In art, it's just happening now. If you look at it, there is no that land we are talking about. The input as an artist is way too much. You get the amount of money that Hope invests in Wumunu does not compare with the amount of money
A farmer maybe will
that a farmer will use, and the money that they get in return, and they are selling tangible products. We are selling ideas. Literally, we are selling an idea that we don't even know you will like. So I think when it comes to creative arts, it all goes back to before you benefit, do we really invest in it?
Or are we milking a cow
Or
without
are we just milking
that
a
we
cow?
never fed?
And we are even lucky we get the 1%. And I'm pretty much sure that 1% comes from other developed African countries.
Yeah, mostly Northern Africa and Southern Africa.
Exactly.
But I want to associate with the point that Arthur is raising, and it will apply to Arthur with his comedians, Hope with Masherika, and you, Diana, with your spoken word. I am conversant with the struggles you people go through to find venues, for starters. I have talked to you, Hope, a number of times in terms of in our real estate developments, where can you actually perform? I know how spoken word has, you're literally nomads.
we have found a permanent home,
yes,
which is good.
Yeah. I have a particular problem with the permanent home because my choice of drinks is not I'm not at liberty to.
I'll invite you next month. You'll like the home.
Yeah. But and the same happens with the guys at comedy, and sometimes I'm sure it's not by design that these days most of the shows are happening on Sundays.
Yeah.
It's not your preference. So I would really like to take the government of Rwanda to task on this, that if we want the creative industry to continue thriving, just the same way we require that when somebody is building a commercial development, a shopping mall or whatever, they will have access for disabled persons, they'll have X number of parking, is the same way they should have provisions for entertainment. The same way you're building a residential estate and they say, please provide for a children's play area, please provide for where the community will be meeting on Umuganda Day, is the same way they should provide for entertainment and entertainment-related industry, and creative industry, sorry. And I want to directly link this with MICE. With all this money that the government has invested in tourism related to meetings, conferences, events, and what have you, we don't want people to come here and get bored and all they can go to is nightclubs. Yes. So they have to be extremely deliberate in terms of, if need be, the megaphones that they had to do in replacement of microphones and speakers, I'm sure it was an economic decision.
Yeah.
If need be, exonerate taxes from some of these equipment and whatever that is required for the creative industry so that we can be able to boost it. Because, and I'm sure this is where Diana was going with the question around the multiplier effect, the other intangible benefits that they come. You know, Hope must be one of the most proud people if she sits back and says, how many of the people who have grown through Mashirika have gone on to do their own thing. There's quite a myriad of them. There's quite a myriad of them. You'd be more happy if there was a bigger incentive for them to be bigger and better. The government needs to. I think
also just to add to that, before we came on air, I'd asked about the creative industry economy. And I know this. We talked about this when we talked about. The BBC's investment in a bureau in Kenya. They invested almost close to $400 million, and it was based on the understanding of the value that such an investment would create for not just them, but not just them in that particular country, but beyond Kenya. And I think the question is always put towards, and that's why I even asked the question of what has changed. And maybe from a MICE perspective, maybe they have understood what you've just said, Charlie, where they're like, at the end of the day, visitors are coming and they are getting bored. There's nothing to entertain them. We need to find a way to boost the creative industry so that it becomes a hub of sorts. So when people do come for MICE, that they can enjoy that, stay beyond the conferences that they come for, the meetings. And I think just my understanding of it, and I keep coming back to this, if we can have a true understanding, if somebody can go out there and do a true study of the potential of the creative industry economy, to what extent does it impact our GDP? To what extent does it contribute to those revenue targets that we have? I think we plan to double them to 800 million. The question is, how do we go about that? And I think for me, if it's a challenge to you guys in the industry. If somebody can go out there and determine that and share that with the policymakers, share that with the various private sector players. You mentioned the ministry going to the private sector to engage them and show them the value of art. If this can be done on a regular basis, I genuinely believe we will see an increase in investment in the space. I mean, at the end of the day, private capital goes after the best return. And if you show them that the return is better in the creative industry, or at least the aggregated return over the long term is better found in investing in the creative industry, I think it would be a good thing.
And I know, just to supplement what you're saying, Ephraim, I know for a fact that during these huge conferences that we're doing very well, since the whole MICE strategy was implemented and really followed up. I know various authorities or organizers of these conferences actually look for artists or people, key players in the creative industries, to ask them, can you organize something in the car-free zone? Can you organize this and this? Can you organize this and this? Because when you have 3,000 foreigners, we actually have a gap as to how to consume, how to engage them for them to consume our services in this sector. But I'd just like to go back to what I asked before. We'd like to hear your personal stories. Before the break, I'm going to start with you, Hope. I'd like to hear your personal stories, your personal initiatives. If you can list them and talk about some of the challenges you faced in boosting the creative industries.
The main challenge I really faced as an artist is trying to dream big for this country, was trying to have a vision, was trying to have a destiny, was skilled people, skilled artists. And that gap of having no skilled artists, because you have talent, but it's not laced with education. You have
training.
And training, yes. Exactly, and training. And then you find somebody, you find that if you're being commissioned to do a lot of work for theatre for development, you're dealing with health, you're dealing with the Ministry of Justice, and you're the script writer. I mean, there are times I would just like write a script, like, I don't know, about 10 scripts in just 1 week, and you'd feel like your muscle aching. Like, where do we get to professional playwrights here? Where do we find them? But this is not even taught in schools. So education system really has to create this fountain of talented people that come on board with skills. So we started like trying to train people in creative writing. So we have, at least today, I can sit and monitor. I can just go in brainstorm sessions because we've created at least a pool of creative writers. All we need is just, what is your gap? Okay, we are going to talk about child protection with the UNICEF. We are going to cover 30 districts. The script is going to be, these are the issues we are going to cover. And then you have people just sit there and they guide you through, and all you do is sit there and say, wow, now I can write things now I want to write. But at least we have this initiative of creating creative writers, script writers, was really a big challenge. But it was also then also the other challenge came into performance. So we started also training people performance. So sometimes...
And just very quickly, for the sake of our audiences, when you say we, you're talking about Mashirika.
We are talking about Mashirika, I'm talking about me, Hope, and we talk about
for you specifically,
our company as Mashirika.
Yes.
So we started what I would call babysitting talents. Say, okay, this guy has got some skills. He can sing right, but how do we help him move forward? So we have created like a pool of at least like skilled artists that can perform, that can read a script. So when it comes also to like when people come here to produce big films that you've heard of HBO, like sometimes in April, we just did a very huge one called Our Lady of the Nile. And we wanted 25 young girls, 18 to 20, who speak French so well, but who are also good performers. The director was demanding. But I was like, I'm not going to call these actresses to come for auditions. I know I have to give them a bit of training. So you're training for people to get jobs. So you train, you're helping someone get a job. But that's our secret, because I know the gaps in our society. But in future, you just walk in a room for auditions. They just give you a script. If you can't deliver, you get out. But I know the gaps. So we do training stroke auditioning.
Wow.
Yeah, so we give them like a 2 months training. We trained about 50 girls. And these 20 girls are going to, they're going to be out there in this huge, big movie. And that's, for me, very rewarding that we've also...
Is it a Hollywood production?
Yeah. In May, all these girls go to Cannes.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, that's what it is. That exposure they'll get there is a lifetime gift that you've given them. So we've been really looking at these gaps and trying to fill them, because our education system right now, there's arts and skills development in the curriculum, but you don't have the right teachers, enough teachers who are comfortable to teach it. So we still need to address that so that we have a source of professionals to feed into the creative industries. Because it's a challenge. There's a gap that we need to fill.
Can you just also briefly inform us, tell us more about Ubuntu Arts Festival?
Yes. So Ubuntu Arts Festival is also an initiative that I was pushed to do more as an artist who has worked, like you said, you've been working with decades and decades. So there is a program called Africa Leadership Initiative. It's under the Spain Leadership Institute. So you're pushed to do more. You're pushed to move from success to significance. Because people like Hope, you've done performances and we've all gone, wow, we've been happy. But what are you doing to leave a legacy? So it's a legacy-driven project, and this legacy-driven project is intended to empower our community. So, but it has to be very authentic and very unique to our own situation. And that's why I took it to the Genocide Memorial, to use our own history as a backdrop to teach other worlds that you don't need to go there. But arts have the capacity to help people teach them that. So Ubuntu Arts Festival is this platform that has 3 programs. It has the training program, it has the festival, and it also has the creative arts therapy, because therapy is also important. Because our young people today, like right now, there's an issue of mental health.
I know. We've talked about it twice, actually. On this platform.
Exactly. And we're not doing enough to deal with this, because it's not our culture. No one wants to look like you're not fine. But there are mental health issues, and which are not helping our young people deliver in school. But what platforms do we have to help them take this out, to help them heal, to help them reclaim themselves. So when we don't provide the right platforms, they go into drugs. And when they go into drugs, it's doom's path. So how would we talk about development? How do we talk about even creative industries without the right people on board?
Absolutely. Arthur, if you could also share your personal initiatives to promote the creative industries in Rwanda.
Well, one that surprisingly worked out. So our boss on radio gave us a challenge. It was like, what's the most trending thing on radio in Rwanda? And to be honest, is Ikinamico. It's funny enough that that's the most listened to segment on radio in Rwanda.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah? And he was like, you guys need to come up with something that can be listened to as much as that. So, sometimes you grow up doing things and you'll never know when you'll apply them. I started in as a dancer, percussionist, playing xylophones and drums, then went through singing and all that. Little did I know I'm going to get that experience and put it on radio. So we created a radio drama that is narrated by two people. It started as Inkuru ya Mimi. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. Very interesting. It's acted out by two people, but it has all the characters, and it replaced the entire thing of having so many drama actors acting one story. So to me, I was like, okay,
interesting.
I feel like this is an art that radio has never seen before in Rwanda. An art of narrating a story, acting it out, changing voices, and all that.
So two people play multiple personalities?
Everything. If you listen to it, it's a movie.
Which radio station and what time?
It's on Kiss FM in the morning at 9. So that's one thing. Another thing that I'm working on, I started the Arthur Nation agency. The reason to why I started it, there were so many agencies in Rwanda, and you find that the directors and the people who execute in those agencies are not artists. It's the funny truth. Yeah? Just check them out. All the big ones that you know. They are not artists. So what they do, they get the job, go to artists do the job, and the artists get like 10% of the whole payment. So I was like, okay, I am really, really done with this. So we started a creative agency called Arthur Nation. So we basically use arts as a form of communication. We not the normal traditional way of advertising or just something so simple. And that really took a lot of my time. So I had to now live another generation of comedy. So that's how I started the Seka events. So if people really came to Seka, there is the whole Seka show is 3 hours, but the first 2 hours are really young kids. I'm sure you were there.
I've been there, yeah.
So the Seka Rising Stars project came in because I was really not getting enough time. So now this year it's going to lead the whole comedy industry because I'm doing a one-man show on 6th this month. It's basically to do my show, but then the whole of this year is going to be led by these young comedians. They are called Seka Rising Stars. They are about 35 comedians from different areas. So we have a show for them called Seka Rising Stars. So they are the ones going to be performing throughout. So what we did as Arthur Nation, we are like, okay, another thing we don't have is a platform. In Rwanda, platforms are really hard to get. There is a lot of revenue sharing that comes in and tell you go to a client, sell, come back. We share. You go to a client, goes back to the other problem of not understanding what they are buying, and then you end up not really making anything. So we designed an app that we are launching on the 1st of May. It's going to be our main platform, basically. So no TV, nothing, but an app. So it's basically something that we are moving, is something huge that we are moving forward to see if we can bring up these young creatives. And this really brings in so many. We are looking at comedians, videographers, filmmakers, musicians, and everything. So it's pretty much a project in the process. So, yeah, I'm still in that stage whereby you hit here and there, to see something.
My worry, this is a little bit related to what Hope talked about earlier on around lack of skill. And
yes.
Yeah. So Arthur saw a gap around the people who run the agencies and said, no, let me go and run the agency. Meanwhile, as consumers of his product are going to miss out on Arthur, who in my opinion is Rwanda's #1 comedian. He's not going to have enough time to entertain the people because he's looking at making money. Yeah, so it's a bit of a catch-22. You know, at the end of the day, he's not growing any younger. Tomorrow he has to, he has needs. He has to look after his family and what have you. He just realizes standing on stage and shelling his mother, and he's not going to put bread on the table for a long time. So it's unfortunate, and I wonder, and maybe hope you could share with us your experience around what's the school in on the way to Gisenyi, the art school.
The School of Music?
Yes, Nyundo. Yeah. Are they only producing musicians? Do we have any other institute that does training for artists?
Well, there are initiatives coming up, but that is the main one. That's the main one. And in Nyundo, there's also the School of Artisans that is around there that is also trying to, has been there for even before the School of Music. The initiatives coming up for dance, for contemporary dance. Yeah. We are talking about theater in schools. We are trying to see how we can also support the education system. Like, okay, how can we teach theater? There's also Kigali Institute of Education. They teach teachers to teach drama. So there are some things that we need to do more. We need to do more. But again, you just talked about something about the bread on the table. And we need also to be very careful about the pressure that creative industries is bringing on board. There's now an urge for people for quick fame. You know, there's quick fame, quick silver, you know, quick way, shortcuts to stay relevant, and they don't have the roots and ties to stay relevant for a long time. So what are we doing in the sector of intellectual property? People need to be sensitized.
And just to build on what you're saying, we need to go to a social media break right now, but it echoes what you're saying, quantification, reports and so forth and so forth in that light. Our first one is from Vugabaya Jackson, who says that there might be a need of all institutions or stakeholders involved in the creative industry to come together and prepare a quantified report, building on what you're saying, I hope, annually, for instance, of the impact that this sector is creating, socio-economic, same as you see it in tourism and other sectors. And I think this is something that we have just been talking about right now. And then we also have another tweet, and this tweet is from Talk Law Rwanda, who gives us some interesting legal perspective. He or she says, legal-wise, a lot has been made to protect rights of individuals engaged in creative industry. And the very good thing is that many of these people are embracing it. This will play a very important role in terms of strengthening this industry. Do you agree with this person in terms of legal protection of artists?
Yeah, but you see,
I know there's intellectual, law and there's copyright infringement.
This is how I think. You protect something beneficial. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It's not beneficial. Some artists...
There's no money to be made.
So the thing is, that's why now, and that's what Hope was saying, quick money. Yes. You feel like there is no reason to protect your product. I'm looking at a singer that says, okay, you cannot download my song. You cannot download it on the streets. You cannot... But yet... When they do that, is when he quickly gets a gig that pays him. Do you get what I mean? It's fast way of getting money. It's the fastest way to fame. The moment your content is easily accessible, it's faster for you to be famous.
Just very quickly, our last tweet for this evening. I think one of the ways of accessible, I think we need a central space. And I just want to read this particular tweet. And this tweet is from African Patriot, and this person says, if the private sector can come up with a theater, then the government should step in and build one. We can't talk of developing culture and arts without a theater. We cannot develop tourism while leaving behind the creative industry. So this quick fame, the quick silver, I liked your message to people involved. It's a grind. In this grind, patience is very paramount. But I also think it's important that spaces, like you've been saying, Charles and Ephraim, are very necessary. How do we convene? How do we come and co-create? How do we exchange ideas if people are scattered and there's no ecosystem that brings these people together? So I think a theatre is personally something I've been looking forward to.
I once gave an example of how much it takes Rayon Sport and Apple on a game and how much it can take Mashirika or Arthur to do an event. Rayon Sport and Apple has a stadium. Done. Me, I'll go to a 2 million venue. Now, they have already sound system that is in that stadium. I'll have 3 million of sound. Their tickets are low because the audience already knows about the art. It's 500. They already have people that have money for them. Ferwafa. They put them online, they give them referees. Me, I hire everything. Why? It's the same. We have sports, we have art. Art was left behind and it's lagging behind. So it's just that thing. The solution is very, very simple. Give it the same care as you give other industries. It's as simple as that.
To quote what your favorite word, Charlie, I think people need to be just very deliberate. They need to be very actionable and deliberate in looking at the arts as an element of contributing to the national GDP.
Can I throw a spanner in the works quickly? I will say this, and I said it before. It is very hard to tell people, invest in this without showing them why it's important. I will say that again. And I say this based on a very simple principle. First things first. We don't have enough resources to go around. When the government sits down and says, okay, we need to allocate a budget to X, Y, and Z, at the end of the day, if no one has gone out, and this is what I'm saying, it's a challenge to you guys in the industry, to go and show the value of this. Coming back to a point that we didn't talk about, news of the week, a Nigerian filmmaker, Genevieve, yes, her film was featured on Netflix. I think it's going to premiere on the 4th of January. And one thing people don't talk about, one thing people don't talk about is how the creative industry offers a huge export opportunity. And I'm saying this is me as somebody, as an outsider looking in. But if people within the industry can say all of this stuff, quantify it, Jackson mentioned a report. If we can take that report and say, look, if you guys invest in this along with the money that is spent towards Visit Rwanda, the money that is spent towards ICT, the money that is spent towards X, Y, and Z in education, and you allocate those resources along the verticals that are tied to the creative industry, we will see some benefit.
I think it's in every sector that prior to investment, there's lots of studies, feasibility studies, due diligence, all these things, huge sectors. This is just one of them. But it's not so much that the lack of interest is there. It's even the resources to do these studies won't be given the same, importance. If someone is, like Charles mentioned, a commercial, for instance, in the real estate sector, a commercial, let's say, a huge plan or idea, you will see studies, money being pumped into this sort of thing, but it's not the same for the arts. Anyway, it's an interesting conversation. We're coming to the close, and I'd like to ask, to start with our guests here, your expectations for the creative industries in 2019 and the future in general in Rwanda.
As I think, then if time allows, I think I just want to throw something around the export point that you raised. I wouldn't like to say that Trevor Noah caught the eye of the Daily Show. But today, Trevor Noah is literally an African export to the world.
And a physical person.
Yes, and the physical person who has been exported to the world. The BBC Africa bureau that we're talking about in Nairobi, where the British have invested hundreds of millions of pounds, they have gotten imports from other African nations and brought them into Kenya for the world. There is no reason, and I want to repeat this, why the government of Rwanda should be importing masters or mistresses, if that word exists, of ceremony to events here in Rwanda.
And you've mentioned this on the show.
Right? So the same way because we have shown that we have this talent. And sometimes I have never gotten an opportunity to blame Arthur for this. On the last show of his that I attended, Ragadi came to perform to an audience that did not relate with him. at all. It was a huge embarrassment. It was a 90-10% ratio. The 90% thoroughly enjoyed the comment.
Basically, we have to trust our product.
And the product is good. We're not second guessing on the product. Yes. So that's really the biggest point that all of us have to get. We have to trust our product. We're not second guessing it. It is good. From a policy perspective, we have to Rwandanize these things.
I'd like you to just close. We have 2 minutes, actually less than that. If you can just give briefly, in a nutshell, your expectations on the future.
My expectations is to see policymakers, creatives, and authorities shift from words to action. Embrace professionalism so that we can fight mediocrity. Because we cannot go that direction. And then embrace professionalism and create more platforms and spaces, but also at the same time support existing creatives that are already struggling, like support them and see what are their gaps and how can we support them.
Arthur?
I have seen how the government changed in terms of education. I have seen how we've seen IPRCs coming up, people learning mechanics, and they put really, recently there was a World Skill Day that happened in Rwanda, which was something amazing. Why? Because the focus really was put in vocational training programs. And that was something beautiful. I think art should join it. Maybe that way it will have more power. And when it joins it, just like they get equipments, we get equipments. Just like they have over 6 IPRCs, we get at least 1 national theater. Just like they get those international conferences coming in and trainings, we get 1 too. And with time, it will catch up. It will create hope. It will give hope to the young generations and be like, there is a life. It will educate the parents and say, it's a career. It will improve the country's economy because now the investors will look at it and be like, okay, now we can invest in it because we can make money from it. So to me, that's how I'm looking at it, if it can happen in 2019.
2019 and the future. But I think the right now where we are, it's very promising. As someone who's also been involved in this for the last 7-8 years, when we started and where we are now in the initiatives I'm involved in. Spoken word Rwanda, it's very promising right now. So I'd like to thank you very much for joining the show, Arthur and Hope.
Thank you.
Continue with your awesome work. It's very refreshing to see that you're really confident and really you still trust the process, so to speak.
Are you going to let Arthur off the hook without promising us complimentaries to his show?
No. Not complimentaries. That's what we support. We'll be there.
He already bought a table for you guys. So.
Thank you very much, Ephraim, Shirley. Always a pleasure having you guys. I'd like to thank you once again. Thank you to our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee. Please keep the conversation going on our Twitter using the hashtag #TheSquareRW, and we'll see you again next week. Have a very start of the new year. Have a good night.